If you've been watching TOECAR for long enough, you should know that it's had more than its fair share of casualties. And it doesn't come down to just the drivers either. Spectators, emergency crews, photographers, no one is safe from this series. But hey, that's why we love it so much. But not all deaths are created equal, so I got to thinking, what are the coolest and lamest fatal crashes in each season of TOECAR? The way I'll be judging these is based on three things. How cool I think the wrecks look, well, obviously, the mannerisms behind the deaths of everyone involved, and how it affected TOECAR's lore. Now, I was originally going to do a longer video where I ranked every single one of TOECAR's fatal crashes, either in a tier list or in just a general numbered ranking, but since I was barely able to muster up the motivation to make this video, that other one I will have to put the kibosh on, at least for now. If and when that video will come out, I don't really know at the moment. But for now, it's time to rank the coolest and lamest deaths for each season of TOECAR up to this point. Starting, of course, with... Talk about starting things off with a bang, Season 1 was just about the best possible way for TOECAR to begin its life. It may not have had the best racing, championship battles, or storylines, and it still has the fewest races of any TOECAR season, but it was an extremely solid foundation for the carnage that would ensue the following seasons. There is one thing that Season 1 has over its successors, and that is that it still boasts the highest body count of any single season, with the vast majority of these coming at just one race. And that race is where we'll kick off our rankings with the coolest fatal crash in Season 1, Slim Slady's tumble into the grandstands during the Splint Cup Series season finale at Kansas. That incident has become the quintessential TOECAR fatal crash, and it's still easily one of the most iconic moments in the series' history. With all the circumstances surrounding the wreck, from the fact that it happened in the final race on the final lap, ultimately deciding the championship battle, and the fact that the wreck itself was also pretty cool to watch, it's worth repeating from the video that I made about this incident that there was simply no other way that TOECAR could have ended its inaugural season. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Slim Slady's ultimate cause of death when he could have been, like, impaled by a stray handrail or something, everything else that I mentioned more than makes up for it. One incident that has almost none of those redeeming qualities is the Lamest wreck in Season 1, just Luke smacking the wall at Riki in Round 5 of the Trash Series season. Now, I know it might seem kind of unfair to single one guy out of a wreck that killed two people, but Strikes Ferguson's wreck at least had some extra flair thanks to Denny McBetty turning colorblind. But this wreck, much like Just Luke's character, was just as irrelevant as it was boring. I'm not going to say any more about this incident, because at the end of the day, he is Just Luke. A wise man once said that all good sequels have higher body counts than their predecessors. Such was not the case for TOECAR Season 2. And that's even if you only count driver deaths. But though we would have to wait another season for the admissions to Davy Jones' locker to start ramping up, this season did have some great moments. In particular, the finale of the Trash Series at Pyongyang, which ended in every NASCAR executive's wet dream, a photo finish deciding the championship. However, this isn't to say that there were no fatalities, and most of the ones we did get this season were actually pretty cool. One in particular took the series by storm, not just because of how it happened, but because of who it happened to. You know where I'm going with this. Yeah, this one should have been a no-brainer. Walter Pressure's rapture at the Clawhammer race in the Trash Series was by far the coolest fatal crash in Season 2. Imagine being a member of the Pressure family at this moment. You've already lost one of your family members in the first race of the series' existence last season, then another one of your family members enters the series hoping to get some level of reconciliation, only to suffer a similar fate. What could be more fitting? What could be more tragic? Not only did this incident do wonders for TOECAR's lore, it was also a pretty nice throwback to the golden age of NR 2003, when people strove to create incidents like this for those easy YouTube views. This wreck had everything. But you know what didn't have everything? The Lamest crash in Season 2, Clareton Chris giving a sideways f**k tap to Giuseppe Gabaguli in opening practice at Daytona. Now, I understand that Clareton Chris's entire purpose in TOECAR was just to pad out the kill count. I don't think anyone was genuinely expecting him to make the full season. But the fact that the wreck happened immediately after he left pit road to begin his first practice run as the booth was still introducing him is some brilliant unintended comedy. If there's any consolation, I guess you could say that Clareton Chris was the only driver who had the cameras on him for his entire career, even if that career was less than 30 seconds. As for the wreck itself, yeah, it's about as boring as it could possibly get, and it was quickly overshadowed by the plane crash that happened in the foreground. If something else had happened to Chris's car, like if another car came in and hit at full speed, similar to what Strikes Ferguson experienced the previous season, it might have had a bit more competition for its title as the Lamest wreck in Season 2 purely because of how comedic it was. But unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, nothing else would happen to his car, meaning that this is the lamest fatal wreck in Season 2 by far. I'll end this segment with a final message to Chris. If you ever win the Bulag at any point, just try not to let history repeat itself. Now we're talking. Season 3 brought with it a much needed increase to the driver kill count that Season 2 was sorely lacking. Funnily enough, in terms of overall casualties, including spectators, pit crew members, and those kinds of people, Season 3 was actually the least deadly of any TOECAR season to date. Now, handing out the awards for this season was actually pretty tough, as there were a few contenders for both coolest and lamest fatal crash. In terms of the coolest fatal crash, I think I'm going to have to give the edge to the ride that Yora took at Riki in the Cup Series. Like I said, there were a few contenders for this award. Bellagio Asiago's wreck at Daytona was violent, Conrad East's wreck at Pyongyang was cool, but I gave the edge to Yora in this case due to the psychological horror that was involved in his wreck. After getting into it with a few other drivers on the backstretch, he then spun back up onto the racing surface with his driver's side door facing traffic as the pack came out of turn 2. I cannot imagine how terrifying that must have felt for Yora. That, combined with the ensuing impacts, which were themselves pretty solid, seals this incident as the coolest fatal incident in Season 3. It also helps that Yora was one of the most beloved drivers in the entire series up to that point, so seeing him die like that gave a little bit of extra sting, an extra thorn in the heart if you will. And hey, what's not to love about that? Not bad, Yora. Not bad at all. But you know what was bad? The 2 incidents that win the award for the lamest fatal crash in Season 3. That's right, we got a tie for this award between Sarah in the Truck Series race at Charlotte and Cheesy in the Cup race at Riki. The same Riki race, in fact, that cost Yora his life. Let's start with Sarah, since hers happened earlier in the season. This wreck was really nothing special. Besides getting stuck in the wall at the end and getting a little bonk in the window net by Jeff Gordon, it was fairly routine. Come on, Sarah, Ryan Newman survived a way worse hit to the window net than you did. And Jackie Said's taken large objects to her head an incalculable amount of times. As for Cheesy, his death had a few different things wrong with it. Not only was the hit to his windshield not really that bad, but his car was actually able to continue the race only with Leland Funnyman behind the wheel. For being a Splint Cup Series winner, he sure did not meet a very dignified end, hence why he is tied with Sarah for the lamest fatal crash in Season 3. And before you ask, no, I'm not going to bring that up again. That's an illegitimate piece of lore that's no longer canon, okay? You're too old, let it go, it's over. Nobody listens to techno, now let's go. What, you thought I wasn't going to give this its own ranking even though I made a whole ass compilation about it? Get out of here. Anyway, lightning round. The coolest fatal crash on the Poc-Oh-No 500K is that of Kai Pod. Celine Dion Waiters may have been funny and Terry Bowles may have been shocking, but the odds of being turned directly into that wall opening are only slightly higher than the odds of me finding love. The lamest fatal crash in that race was that of Lendrick Kamar. It was him or Frank O'Sheen, but I just gave it to Lendrick because I think him driving back to the pits and then dying looked real stupid. And if you think this is the last time that someone died in a car that could have finished the race, you're dead wrong. Season 4. It may not be statistically the deadliest TOECAR season to date, but it sure as hell felt like it. Naturally, this meant that there were tons of options for both coolest and lamest fatal crash. Keeping with tradition, we'll start with the coolest. Just like with Season 3, this award also came down to a few finalists. And although malnourished Marcus Morgan getting his pummel stumped at Pigs Creek and Adita Hatman flying into hordes of traveling Mississippians at Talladega were certainly worth their salt, neither of them made my jaw drop nearly as much as the eventual winner of the award, Dadgum flying into the grandstands at Trenton. One immediate upside is that this crash came out of absolute nowhere. Unlike the other crashes I listed, the cameras weren't on Dadgum for his entire wreck. And so, the audience would be awestruck when out of nowhere came a blue blur, tearing down the catch fence and punching a vehicle-sized hole into the grandstands. One other thing you may have noticed about this accident is how reminiscent it is to Walter Pressure's accident earlier in the list. As it turns out, Dadgums might not have actually been an accident, as just before the race began, he married Walter Pressure's mother, Claire Pressure, to Harold Klott. And with this incident came speculation that perhaps someone from the great beyond did not approve of the marriage, even if it meant costing 33 innocent spectators their lives. While the full truth of this incident may never be known, what is true about this incident is just how cool it was. And how lame the next crash I'm about to talk about was. As a matter of fact, this incident was so blasé that we still to this day don't know the identity of the driver who perished in it. Somehow, during opening practice for the Splint Cup race at Monza, an unknown carjacker was able to get into the 33 car, usually driven by Weed Trimma, and take it for a spin around the high-banked oval. This joyride would not last long, however, and the 33 quickly found itself trapped in the middle of 5 wide. John Doe presumably panicked and drove right down the track into the path of Chunk Charles' wagon, which sent them both up the track and the 33 over the wall. And well, that was the last we ever saw of John Doe. His death was announced shortly after the incident, and Weed Trimma would get back behind the wheel of the 33, start the race, and go on to finish a respectable 5th. As I said several times in my top 10 worst drivers video, some people just should not be allowed to pilot a race car. And while this John Doe was thankfully stopped before he could cause too much damage to others, it's a tragedy that this ever had to happen in the first place. Hence why this incident is far and away the lamest fatal crash in TOECAR Season 4. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's been like almost 4 months at this point since I first teased it in a community post, but I've just had so much stuff going on that I can't really talk about right now that I haven't really been able to work on the video as much as I wanted to, but I did eventually get it out in the end, which I guess is really the only thing that matters. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I shall hibernate once again, or at least until the season ends and I have to upload the second part of the Fatal Crash comp. But for now, I'm Stair Oil, and I'll see you in whatever I make next. Deuces.